Welcome to Outbound Labs by Predictable Revenue, where we share the results of our prospecting experiments, what we learned along the way, and what it means for your team. Hey everybody, welcome back to Outbound Labs, where we're talking about breaking down personalization at scale and where you should spend your time. I'm Colin, and as always,
Lavinia.
Perfect. Today, we're dissecting Sarah's method for sort of her version of personalization at scale. If you haven't watched the first video in this series, highly recommend check it out. Otherwise, some of this might be a little bit out of context. So I'll pause. I'll let you go check that one out now if you haven't watched it. If you're just binging all these like a great Netflix series, then we'll just keep rolling with it. So today what we're doing is we're looking at how do you find the posts. So with Sarah, she was following different thought leaders. And so today we're looking at different thought leaders, company blogs, groups, hashtags. So talk to me about what we're trying to like. This is basically identification of the right post to go after, right?
Yeah. So what we really wanted to do was find out the most effective place to start when we're looking for a post to follow this method. So naturally, there are going to be some ways where you can go, straight to the source. Great, there's a post and I can see it has 5,000 likes on it. And I kind of know roughly, 50% are going to be relevant. So you've got a solid campaign making there. But obviously when this was new and we're trying to roll it out, like where do we start? So as Colin was saying, we identified 4 different methods that were really how you could find posts. So thought leaders, pretty self-explanatory. Have a quick Google of thought leaders in X industry or X area. Go through, follow them on LinkedIn. Companies, so these are also relevant companies in each ecosystem. And groups, request to join those relevant groups, see who's posting in there, what they're chatting about. And then finally, just use a good old hashtag to search for something that's going to put it up. And that can be done in your LinkedIn search.
So old school, hashtags. And so just as a reminder, this is relevant because we are trying to find relevant conversations.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
We're trying to find threads where there's tons of comments and likes, where we can mine that for people that are relevant to our offering.
Exactly. And so we took all of these 4 different methods, and the aim was to really rank them in order of effectiveness. So A, which one would get us to a list of contacts as quickly as possible, and B, also produce results. There's no good going to a post that has 1,000 likes, but you can get 5 prospects out of it, because that's not going to get you an effective campaign. So the first thing we did is we worked with the whole team here, the whole account management team, and we set up a range of different experiments that would compare each method to another method. So for example, we compared thought leaders versus companies, and then we gave them a ranking against each other. Then we compared thought leaders versus hashtags, companies versus hashtags, et cetera, till we had the full complement. And that way we could really give them a ranking as well on a scale of 1 to 4.
Cool. And so basically the goal is just where's the fastest place for me to find a relevant conversation.
Yeah.
I think coming into this, before I look down at the results here, I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot of variety. There's going to be a ton of variance just without even looking at the results. And I have sneak peek at some of them, but I haven't looked at everything here. So this is what my gut says, is that there are going to be some audiences that are going to be super active in their thought leadership on LinkedIn. There are going to be some companies that are really active, probably some groups. I don't know about the hashtags. I haven't really used many hashtags on LinkedIn. I know people do it. I see it in posts all the time.
You know who you are.
I just assume, marketing team, what's up? I just assume that's people using that for like LinkedIn's algorithm to find and like prioritize the content. Like, this is who you should show it to. Hashtag salespeople. Hashtag Lavinia's mom.
She was on LinkedIn. I'll be impressed. Anyway, so before we get to the results, we measured the effectiveness of each way of finding posts with 3 metrics. So the first was more qualitative. It was basically like, how easy was it to find a post for this? Was it, yeah, super easy, one search and I found one? Or was it, I spent half a day looking and that was nothing? The second one was more quantitative, so volume of engagement, so how many people had liked or commented on it. And then the third was volume of relevant prospects. That's how many people from that number of engagement can you actually get for your campaign.
Cool.
So, as I was saying, we ran a good handful of these campaigns.
When you say good handful, like
a good handful. It was one and a half.
one and a half handfuls. So like I couldn't hold them all in one hand. What's the relative size of the campaign in relation to my hand?
So there are 11. So I reckon if you can get 10 in one hand, then you a little bit of the second hand.
That's a lot of campaigns in one hand.
It's big hands. So yeah, we ran 11 across the board.
That's our nickname for Lavinia, Big Hands Lavinia.
Don't even have big hands. We ran 11 across the board, and the overall theme was that there were very few results. It wasn't even a case of finding one that stood out or one that was particularly less effective than another. Across all of them, the majority of feedback was, I can't find anything. People were spending over 4 hours searching for posts. They were trawling through LinkedIn. They were creating all kinds of different crazy ways of trying to find different companies that were relevant, or groups, or like hashtags, or different thought leaders that could be connected. And honestly, it was incredibly difficult. And
it sounds like a really fun one. Nobody must have been frustrated at all.
Everyone was really happy with me.
Thank you so much for putting us on this.
And yeah, so it was one of those points where there was a lot of talk among the team that, you know what, this isn't a failed experiment. It's just showing us that how this method isn't going to work. This isn't a viable way to try and find posts.
It's not going to work for every single company, every single industry. Really, it comes down to where are your prospects active online?
Exactly.
You know, if it's LinkedIn, great. If it's a Google forum, great. If it's Stack Overflow, great.
Yeah, exactly. There was one experiment to that point that did have some results. So this was one, again, targeting HR personas. You might be seeing a theme here of where this could work. And there was a great post from a thought leader that was relevant. It had almost 4,000 individuals who engaged with the post. And from that, 164 prospects were relevant to the campaign. So it's a pretty small return rate still, but there was something there. So it was initial small amount of positive validation compared to the rest of the methods and experiments that, quite frankly, produced nothing.
Gotcha. And I mean, I think this overall, like if you got 4,000 prospects on a single thought leader's post, and only 164 are relevant, like that's really low.
Yeah.
You know, I think when Sarah's doing it, she's looking at you're like minimum kind of 20%.
Yeah.
Right. And she's looking for posts that have, I don't know, what is it? 100 likes and 100 comments or something along those lines. And so you're looking at like smaller individual posts that are where there's 4,000 seems like quite a bit.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think this goes to show that, as we've been saying, this definitely isn't a method where one size fits all. And it's better to break it down by who you're reaching out to and what you're reaching out to them with. Is that community active on LinkedIn? And you know what? As we've seen, we have had some positive validation. It can work, but just to be hyper aware of where it can't, and also to be really aware it's not a one size fits all solution by any means. So this comes back to the nuance. So, you know, we want to get a personalization at scale campaign, but where can we use it and where can we really tap into that method?
100%. I think the interesting sort of one of the takeaways here is like when we look at this HR individual, this single post had 4,000 prospects on it.
Yep.
So I think if I compare that to what Sarah and what I've seen Beck do, they were working with much smaller individuals. Like I think if you look at, and I can't claim to know how the LinkedIn sort of hype cycle or the LinkedIn content algorithm works, but there certainly seems to be it seems like there's certain content that if it hits sort of, if it gets a bunch of likes and comments really, really quickly, then it gets thrown into like the general pool of like everybody's, not everybody's, but a much, much larger pool of people's activity feeds. And so when it becomes that large and you've got engagement from 4,000 people, it's going to be a lot less and less relevant, because it's no longer just that person's followers. I suspect as it gets more popular, if this is your core of followers, it gets pushed farther and farther out. So I'd almost argue, and maybe this is counterintuitive, that one thing that we could explore is looking for posts that are smaller. So 100 to 200 pieces of engagement, maybe 200 to 400, or maybe 500 is the max, because then we know that it's stayed within their sort of sphere of influence.
Yeah, very true.
Right. It's almost like these individuals on LinkedIn that have these followings. It's like they're, marketers from 10 years ago or thought leaders from 10 years ago that have email lists, right? And they're emailing their regular people, right? And what you want to do is get access to their regular people by finding out who's engaging with their posts, right? So that's really what we're trying to replicate, is that old like email list sharing thing. And so one interesting piece of learning for me is that maybe 4,000 comments on a post is actually too large, because it's got blown up and you've gone way outside that sort of sphere of regular followers to people that are less and less relevant.
Yeah, and exactly, it's all about the relevance. And when you have 4,000, it's almost certainly not going to be directly relevant to all of them.
Totally. So what else do we learn, and what do we do next?
I think now's a case of going back and looking in those cases where we do have positive validation. What else can we do to try and make the most of it? How can we make that method most effective? We also do talk about an experiment where we try to overcome this hurdle of finding posts. So we actually reverse engineer it a bit. So we find a really high quality target list and check out their engagement. But yeah, we talk about that in our next video.
Awesome. As always, I'll try and remember my words. Find the subscribe button and the little icon with the little bell. If you click that, you'll get a notification the next time that we post a video. So if you want to find that next one, if you want us to let you know when that next one comes out, hit those two buttons, and it'll annoy you some way with a notification that'll take up every part of your screen and be like, hey, Colin and Lavinia just posted a new video. So hit that button if you want us to annoy you personally.
See you then.
See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.